Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Showcase 2030. Thank you for joining us for day 2. My name is Dan Ram, and it is my joy and honor to be back with you yet again for another action-packed, exciting, knowledge-filled day. Yesterday was, in some ways, a little bit of a teaser, but an amazing one where we learned a lot. Today, we're taking things up a notch. We have so many hours of great content lying up ahead. The big question is, are you ready? As always, I want to see you engaged and involved as much as possible. So let's look at a couple ways that we can include you, our audience, in today's conference. So first of all, social media is where a lot of the action is happening. Hashtag Showcase 2030 at EPFL Tech for Impact. Do tag us as you're reflecting, as you're learning. Do put a blog post out on LinkedIn. Tag us. Take a picture of what you're seeing here. Put it on Instagram stories. Say that you're here. Tag us. Go on Facebook, write up something, take a picture, a video snapshot, tag us. Whatever it is, tag us so we can get the word out to the world. Because obviously we're talking about something very, very important. On that, the important part that I want to show right now is how you can engage in the comment sections. So here's today's question. What is the most pressing challenge of our times? Right now, can you take a moment? I know it's in the morning. I know you might have just had a cup of coffee. I know you might have just chased your kids out of the room going, shoo, shoo, shoo. It started, Showcase 2030. Maybe you're chasing a roommate out going, hey, man, you go watch Netflix by yourself. We are here today to learn at Showcase 2030. But put in the comment section, what do you think, in your opinion, is the most pressing challenge of our times? I'd love to get a dialogue on that. And then we have tons of great speakers. Roundtables, lightning talks, impact cases. What am I missing? Lots of stuff. I'll know because I'm guiding you through it. So we have so many different formats. Of course, the master classes, big time. So we have so much that we have over the next 6 hours or so with us. So make this your home. So we have our first comment that came in from Ivan saying that communication is the most pressing challenge of our time. All right. I'd love to know a little bit more about that. As you can see on our set, I'm just going to zoom out here so you can see. This is, as you probably know at this point, is a virtual studio. I'm just in a green box, but we designed these boxes on this side over here and in this side over here with some of the UN SDGs. So I know it's a bit zoomed out, but you can always Google what the UN SDGs are. This was something that 190 countries agreed on together. And they said, if we don't make some drastic changes, the world's not going to be in a good place. And so let's look through some of them. I mean, number one, actually, if you know these UN SDGs, drop them in. I'm going to start right now. So you help me through numbers 11 through 17. I'm going to go through 1 through 10. All right. Tag team here. So Antoine says ecosystems collapsing. Alexandra says climate change. That's good. Climate change. By the way, I'm doing a trivia later on today, so you can remember this trivia point. Climate change is UN SDG number 13. So again, remember that one because we're going to do a trivia later, and I don't want you to lose. I want you to win. And so remember, number 13 is climate change. But the first UN SDG, number 1, is no poverty. Number 2 is zero hunger. Number 3, good health and well-being. Oh no, my memory is failing me. What's number 4? Number 4, oh yes, gender equality. Can't forget that one. Number 5, oh no. Number 4 was quality education. Number 5 is gender equality. Number 6 is clean water and sanitation. Come on, guys, help me with the rest of them. So Thibaut says, taking seriously the urge for sustainability in every single action of society. I'm referring to the first 3 pillars of sustainable. Very good, Thibaut. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. So again, what do you think is the most pressing challenge of our time? Today, as far as the content goes, we have someone talking to us about coral reefs. That's right. Coral reefs, that might be what's going to help us against the increasing global warming that is going on. And so that is number 14, life before water. Life below water, number 14. We have someone coming to talk to us about sustainable cities and communities. That's UN SDG number 11. We have people talking to us about partnerships, and we have some beautiful partnerships we're going to celebrate, and that's UN SDG number 17. So a lot of great content today. I hope you're ready to kick things off this morning. we have got a wonderful gentleman who has studied physics and maths. He's got a PhD in plasma physics, a postdoc from Canada. He's worked in nanotechnology and surface science. He is involved in multiple EU projects, and he's part of different expert groups and evaluation committees for the European Commission. He is here as the head international affairs and the delegate to the president of the EPFL. Please welcome onto our screen, Olivier, over to you.
Well, thanks a lot, Don. Thanks for the nice words. So actually, I'm here on behalf of EPFL presidency and its president, Martin Fetterli, who actually, unfortunately, has to excuse himself. So I'm heading the international affairs at EPFL, and I'm happy, to just say a few words about EPFL. So we have a long tradition of developing cutting-edge technologies that benefit humanity everywhere in industrialized countries, as well as in the global south, where our technologies can make a huge difference, actually. And let me give you some examples. So the Tech4Dev, Technology for Development, is a program in collaboration with the Swiss Development and Cooperation Agency, and is focused on having a real impact on the ground in a very short time span of maybe 2 years. And you will hear about it in a roundtable with Beatrice Scarioni from Tech4Impact and Nathalie Wyser from STC, both already on the screen, and this will be in the morning. There is another program which just started 2 years ago. It's called Excellence in Africa, and it's a collaboration with the University Mohammed VI Polytechnique in Morocco, aiming to actively support education and research across the whole continent, African continent, and those contributing, building up sustainable economy. And you will hear a presentation by Frederic Meylan in the afternoon. Then technologies plays a crucial role in addressing the Agenda 2030. EPFL, as a leading scientific institute, develops disruptive solutions for many of the great and grand societal challenges we are facing, but we require partners who bring the solution to the market and on the ground to have a real impact. So, for example, LC3 is an innovative cement which has the potential to cut global CO2 emission by 2%. And Professor Karen Scrivener will present it in the afternoon. Science for diplomacy has gained much attention over the last year. EPFL is proud to have launched, and Dan already mentioned it in the introductory remarks, a program on the uniqueness of the Red Sea corals. And it's in collaboration with the Swiss Foreign Ministry and the researchers in the region to study and protect the corals, source of large biodiversity and basis for the economies around the Red Sea. And Professor Anders Meyboom will present in the afternoon. And let me just give you an update here. So the kickoff of our 2021 expedition is next week on the 21st of July in Aqaba, in Jordan. And you will certainly read in the press about it. Another example is Enterprise for Society, E4S. It's a unique academic collaboration where we leverage the scientific excellence of 3 universities in Lausanne. It's EPFL, IMD, and the University of Lausanne to promote sustainability and education, research, and innovation. And there is a roundtable with Jean-Philippe Bronardi, Arnaud Chevalier, and Dominique Fauré later today in the afternoon. So all in all, EPFL is very committed to contribute to the SDGs. So sorry, Dan, I do not know by heart, all the SDGs as you just did. But we're bringing together the talented students and outstanding academics, the know-how and technologies, and translating them into products and services for the benefit of humanity. So I wish the Showcase 2030 conference a huge success. The world is desperate for solutions, and actually we have the means to contribute. So have a nice day, and thanks for inviting me.
All right. Thank you so much for those lovely words. Thank you for being a part of this, Olivier. And thank you for laying the scope for what is about to happen over the next few hours. So just so everyone knows, we've got 2 hours of content now. We're going to do some master classes and 2 more hours after that. But I'm really excited about our next speaker. Now, we were chatting earlier about her amazing background, everything from mountain hiking and ski tours. She practices yoga every day, and she's got a pretty unique skill, something she learned as a child that she's able to do today. She knows how to ride her bicycle backwards. So if ever you see someone on their cycle riding backwards, well, it's our next speaker. She is an environmental scientist. She's conducted research in Chile, Honduras, Burkina Faso, Ghana, Mexico. She even lived in Bangalore, which is not far from where we are broadcasting right now, for many years. She teaches development engineering, cooperation, and development courses at EPFL. She's a member of the Commission for Research Partnerships with Developing Countries. We're very fortunate to have the wonderful Silvia. Silvia, the screen is yours now.
Thank you so much, and good morning. Well, when we look at the Sustainable Development Goals, we can see that progress has been limited. The Global Sustainable Development Report 2019 actually shows us that we are moving away from 7 SDGs. And this is especially true in the Global South. In the Asia-Pacific region, it looks like none of the SDGs will be reached and only 10% of the targets that have been defined. Even though the SDGs have been signed by 193 governments, clearly governments will not be able to provide all the infrastructure, products, and services that are needed to implement the SDGs. NGOs, international development agencies, and UN agencies clearly contribute, but they are often project and program-based, and even long programs come to an end one day, and they are targeted on specific regions for specific funding cycles. So how can entrepreneurs have a leveraging power in the Global South? Let me touch on 7 issues at lightning speed, as this is a lightning talk under 7 minutes. So first of all, entrepreneurs focus on the needs of the beneficiaries. People can and have money to pay for the services that they actually need. And the same is true for government agencies who contract products through public procurement. Secondly, entrepreneurs can take research to market. They can take cutting-edge research and transform it into marketable products. This can mean making services available in the field of health, education, finances through smartphone apps, for instance, or it can mean developing new business models that provide sustainable access to energy to households on a pay-as-you-go system, or implementing circular economy principles by building a business on recycling waste. Third, agility and flexibility. Entrepreneurs need to be agile. Actually, they will have to be in order to survive. So they need to adapt quickly and they can seize emerging opportunities, which might not be the case for international development agencies or UN agencies. 4, and very important, entrepreneurs have this gift and they are forced to identify and develop sustainable business models. They sell products and services at a cost. And that means that they become financially sustainable if they are to survive in the long term. That brings me to number 5, scale. Successful entrepreneurs will be able to scale up and cover larger regions and reach more beneficiaries, ideally in more remote areas, and therefore bring positive change at scale. 6, entrepreneurs create jobs. This in itself contributes to the SDGs. Families with secure incomes can access better shelter, better housing, better sanitation, better education for their children, and better health care. And 7, really important if you look at the challenges that we're facing today. Entrepreneurs have this amazing capacity to innovate. They continuously need to find solutions to problems, whereas in academia, we're more looking for problems. They are actually trying to find the solutions, and this is what we are needing. So therefore, and wrapping up, the role of governments, international development agencies, international development banks have an important role to play in order to create an enabling environment for entrepreneurs, giving them the required financial support and by creating the appropriate policy environment. This environment should specifically support entrepreneurs who are able to deal with the interlinkages, the synergies, and the trade-offs that exist among the SDGs and integrate them into their business model. So business as usual is simply no longer an option. And entrepreneurs have an essential role to play in the acceleration and transformative change that we need in order to reach the SDGs. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much for those wonderful words. We already have some questions coming in, so I'm just going to give a couple seconds for our audience to know that in the comment section below, you can ask a question right now, live. And so let's see what we have. Quick question while we are waiting for them. When it comes to, because our next panel is about collaboration, we talked a lot about agility. I love that word. Agility is most known, of course, in the startup world. Question, is it possible for large companies, even big universities like EPFL, to be agile? Or is that only for small teams and startups?
Is it possible for large universities such as EPFL to be agile? Well, I certainly hope so, at least every 4 years when the new objectives are being defined. And I think EPFL does have the capacity to jump on opportunities and build partnerships as they arise and in the spirit of the time in order to bring the capacity and the innovative technologies that EPFL actually has the capacity to develop and contribute in this sense to the SDGs. So yes, I certainly do think that EPFL, even though it is large, it can be agile, but it is composed of many different actors at many different levels. So I would say yes, for sure.
Absolutely. We have a question that's come in, and the question is, why is it that we struggle so much in achieving the SDGs on time?
I think there's two questions in there. So why do we struggle to achieve them? Because they cover everything, and none of the SDGs can be left behind. So there are so many trade-offs and actually contradictions between SDGs. If you look at, creating industry is in complete opposition of reducing CO2 emissions if it's not based on renewable energies. So it is really, the trick is really to identify the synergies, for instance, how energy can leverage SDG 3 and 4, and to try to bring the entire 17 SDGs forward to populations who are hard to reach and go beyond low-hanging fruit. And this is just an immense challenge. There is a very large amount of funding missing to bring them forward. And this has been recognized already after the MDGs, and it still remains a challenge. So I think it's not easy. At the same time, we all know that it is absolutely crucial that we do not abandon this global agenda for more sustainable development at the global level.
So when it comes to achieving something as monumental as the SDGs, it really is everybody's role. Everybody's got to play, right? So it's a whole ecosystem conversation. If I may ask you a cheeky question, which of the players do you think is lacking right now? Who is not an equal weight at the table? So if we look at research, if we look at corporates, if we look at startups, if we look at governments, if we look at all the big, the financial sector funding some of these things, where do you think we need more support, need more help, maybe need more people joining?
So clearly, I'm coming back to the finances that are needed to implement the SDGs. These are trillions of dollars that are missing and that are currently, used partially to subsidize a fossil fuel industry. And if that money was taken and invested into SDGs, because many countries do not have the national budgets in order to implement the programs and projects that will bring them closer to the SDGs. So I would say key financial players who are serious about investing the money to bring the SDGs forward, this is what's missing, in my opinion.
Okay. We've got one more question before we let you go, Silvia. This one comes from Hilda. It says, how can enterprises in the global south maintain financial robustness while keeping impact integrity with limited purchasing power of beneficiaries?
Okay, dense question. I'm not an economist. I will try to decipher. So can you just repeat the question? How can enterprises keep their...
Yeah, so how can they keep impact integrity while having limited purchasing power? So impact, purchasing power. They're essentially saying it's one or the other.
Yeah, I think, any enterprise that is aiming at furthering sustainable development is aiming for impact. And that is the key. If we produce services and products that don't have an impact, that don't bring about a positive change, then that is basically not targeted on the needs. And while keeping the purchasing power, I can't actually answer that question. I'm not an expert on that, so I will have to leave that to other people who know more about that.
Excellent. Silvia, thank you again for joining us here. And thank you for a very, very sharp lightning talk that was actually lightning speed. So thank you very much for packing so much value in such a short amount of time. Take care, and we'll catch you later.
Much. Bye. Thank you so much.
Excellent. So that was Silvia. And next up, what we have is our first roundtable discussion. I have got 4 people joining me. We're going to populate the screen very quickly with them right now as I'm talking. We've got Sarah Bell, Vissam Kadi, Benoit, and Julia, who are going to be joining me on the screen for our roundtable conversation. We're going to be talking about GSIV. So let's see. Ladies and gentlemen, there we go. Bam, look at this. Our first large group conversation. If you can hear and see everything, just wave at the camera, please. So wave, wave, wave. There you go. There's the royal queen wave from everyone. They're ready to go. It's lovely to have you all here. We have a few minutes to talk about GSIV. Honestly, very excited to dig into this. So Sarah, can we start with you, please?
Yes, with pleasure.
Absolutely. You are at the UNDP and very curious just to macro conversation. Talk us through a little bit about why the UNDP supports startups, why the UNDP has launched this GSIV, Growth Stage Impact Ventures initiative. Give us an overview of it, please.
Thank you very much, Dan. And I have to say, already many things have been said. Let me start with stating that SMEs are the backbone of the economy, and especially in developing countries. They provide jobs, they provide livelihood for a majority. But we need to fuel that part of the economy. And as Silvia mentioned, I think it's a recent study of the OECD that stated that we need more than 4 trillion a year to implement the SDG in developing countries. So we really need to shift mainstream capital flows towards impact, towards the SDG, and obviously, where it really matters most in developing countries. And that was very much the rationale of the Growth Stage Impact Venture Initiative. We wanted to convince investors to redirect the existing trillion that are out there. It's not a lack of money. The money is there. We just need to redirect it where it matters most. So what we did was really to set up that program to showcase that there is already a pipeline of very solid companies in developing countries that are doing well and doing good at the same time, and all of that at scale. Because, investors often complain about the ticket size. So that's why we really wanted to move the needle and identify those growth stage companies that are already delivering services like, access to health, access to clean energy, waste management to the poorest in developing countries. So that was really the rationale at the beginning. And this is all connected to this idea of increasing dramatically the volume of investment that goes towards the SDG.
Thank you so much for taking us through that. And I think what will be helpful is we have Benoit from Orange, right? So CSR Impact Manager at Orange. Benoit, I'm very curious, for a large telecom company like Orange, where do you see the value in getting involved in this sort of startup initiative? Why? Why would Orange do this?
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Dan. Just let me remind you or tell you that yes, we are a telecommunication company, and we actually operate in 26 countries in Middle East, Africa, and Europe for 250 million customers. So why it is important? I think that startups are agile, and we've talked about agility just before this talk. Startups are agile, and very often they are very close to specific needs of population, and that's something very important for us. And in Africa, my colleagues from Africa are developing a multi-services platform in order to develop services in order to improve everyday life population in areas like education, agriculture, energy access, health access, etc. And we do that working with startups, signing partnerships, business partnerships with the startups, and it works well. Actually, we provide business to the startups, and we provide useful services for the population. And there are very good examples, like for example, in the energy area, we have a partnership with Easy Solar, who is a winner of the SDG Finance Geneva Summit this year. But also in the area of agriculture, we have partnerships with startups like Ignitia, who won 2 years ago, or Brainstorm, or in the health area, Dababok, for example. That are a few examples of these very useful startups for people in these countries.
Excellent. Thank you for taking us through some of these success stories and collaborations. By the way, while I have a couple questions for our roundtable to our wonderful audience who's watching, which is, of course, why we do the Showcase 2030, let's use this opportunity to make this as interactive as possible. In the comment section below, technically it says Q&A, same thing. Do drop in your questions. I see one question already coming in. So let's use this time to, I guess, grill our amazing roundtable, because right now they're looking very calm. You know, these questions are easy. So don't be afraid to ask some tough questions to them. Wissam, we're going to go to you. Similar question that I asked Benoit. You work for SAP, Global Initiatives Director. So again, SAP, global, massive, every country in the world, basically. Where is the value in being part of something like GSIV? Talk to us about that a little bit.
Sure. Thank you, Denram. So I guess we've seen with, for example, what happened now with COVID-19, that we had the biggest supply chain challenge of all times, right? And that's where we saw that software and technology companies can play a big role in enabling sustainability. So it's totally in line with our, I would say, commitment and values to sustainability, to the SDGs, and to our customers and partners. So if you think of SAP having 4 million suppliers on our supply chain solution, with a 3 trillion spend of commerce worldwide. So we've got a responsibility here to really match, buyers and sellers, and to make sure that sustainability is embedded in everything that they do. And that's why we also worked with Accenture on the SDG ambition, since we know that, we've got only less than now 10 years to work on reaching the SDG and Agenda 2030. And we can't do it alone, right? So we need to collaborate with governments, and we need to get those ideas from the startups worldwide, specifically from emerging countries where there's an urgent need for collaboration, an urgent need for new tech, for emerging tech, and for financing as well. So it's really part of our global role to make sure that we're all collaborating together for Agenda 2030.
Excellent. Now, we've heard from 2 big corporates. We've heard from the UNDP. We've got to hear from the university. So, Head of Tech for Impact, Julia, talk to us a little bit about the university's role in GSIV and the value on both sides.
Thank you so much, Dan. And I think it's an important question, because the answer to this question is, from my perspective, far from obvious. If you think about a university, what is usually core of a university is education and research. So the question is, how does innovation come in here, and in particular this initiative? And I believe that what is very interesting at EPFL is that innovation is really part of our mission statement. So we have education, research, innovation. So I think this is one part to the answer. But what is even more so, I believe if we want to stay relevant as a university nowadays, we need to do much more in disseminating our knowledge, in kind of using our capabilities to also better address societal needs. And we're talking sustainability, so what other topic would be much more addressing societal needs? So I believe these are our two tasks. We need to use our understanding, and in this respect, what we're doing at this initiative is we're involved in the evaluation and the assessment of these startups. And I think we're just in a very good position to do so because we see, let's say, the cutting edge research that comes out of EPFL. So I believe we're in a very good position to evaluate these startups as well. But honestly, what I really believe is bringing this credibility from the university perspective. But if you have seen my introduction talk yesterday, what I emphasized is at Tech for Impact, we want to rethink public-private academia partnerships. And this initiative is for me really one of those initiatives that clearly signals this. We all need to get out of our usual roles. If we want to have these multi-stakeholder platforms, we all need to change a little bit. And yes, this is not necessarily at the core of what a university would usually do, but I believe it's a very important task that we are fulfilling here. And I would actually like to play back this question to Sarah and ask, Sarah, where do you see the biggest value actually in having EPFL involved? Because I think you might be also in a position to address this question.
Thank you, Julia, for putting me on the spot. I think you said it. It was not, I don't think that we could have brought the quality of the program without EPFL, because you really, working with us and working with all the different partners, obviously, because the selection process, we work, just to explain a bit more how we work. So we don't go directly to entrepreneurs like many other people are doing. The unique aspect of the program is that we leverage the existing due diligence and we bring existing pipeline together. So we ask investors, we ask the UN, we ask government to nominate out of their existing pipeline the growth stage entrepreneurs that can qualify. And then those nominated, and we had 214 nominations this year, they are going through a very rigorous selection process that is managed by EPFL. And we end up with 12 finalists. So you can imagine how competitive the program is. And I think what you bring is this action research perspective. And you bring that rigor to the selection process, and that makes really the quality of the entire program, and that's why it is so well recognized both by the public and the private players all around the world.
I do want to ask you, Julia, about that criteria, that eligibility. And how exactly that selection is made. But before that, we have a question from the audience. So any one of you panelists are welcome to answer this. The question is, how do you ensure that the innovations in tech that is funded scales in the global south? Do any of you have some good examples or processes that you're willing to share about how you scale the innovation in the global south?
I can go if you want, and I'll let the others add. But what we already look at in the selection process is the potential to scale. And oftentimes the finalists already have shown that they actually are already active in 2 or 3 countries. So in this particular initiative, here we really select entrepreneurs that already have a track record, that show that they are actually capable of bringing their technology, not just in one single market, but across markets. And I think this is a very crucial aspect of this initiative. We're saying that we're running against time. We're hearing that over and over again, not just in this event, but in multitude of reports and news. So I think this running against time scaling is crucial. And this is why we really look for those entrepreneurs where we believe they have the technology and they have the entrepreneurial capabilities to actually implement their solutions, not just in one country, but across different contexts. So this is something that we ensure already in the selection process. And to go back to the question, this is something where we usually look for a track record so that they're not just active in one country, but several already.
And if I just may add something, and I think Benoit and Wissam will have a lot to say about that. You know, as Julia mentioned, and Silvia also, we're looking for scale. And scale is not only about money, even though it's very important. It's very much about partnership. And that's, again, like a unique aspect of a program. And I think there, large corporate have a huge role to play. The SAP, the telco, but also the Microsoft and the Google. And we work with all of them because very often they have internally organized, for instance, like a marketplace, or they can connect, for instance, our GSIV to the wider ecosystem. They can also bring technical assistance to leverage the existing technology and scale it up, for instance, regionally, or we've seen also across continent. And that's really one of the benefits of the program, because we bring entrepreneurs from all around the world. And we've seen that one of the huge benefits and added value is that they meet and they start creating joint venture across continents. But I'm going to stop there and let the floor to Benoit and Wissam.
No, I totally agree with you, Sarah, that it's a unique networking opportunity when you're meeting in the same room, or even now like at a virtual room, with investors, with tech companies, and universities as well. So this kind of nice innovation ecosystem could definitely help them to scale even further.
Mm-hmm. And just you said it before, but we need to insist on that. What is very important in the GSIV process is to mix expected and proven impact and business maturity, because business maturity makes possible the scalability, because we have strong startups that are able to operate in other countries and to develop their business, and then to develop positive impact solutions.
Super. Thank you all for commenting on that. This question looks like it's coming for Julia, but again, I'm happy for any of you to answer this. The question is from Thibault. Do you believe institutions such as EPFL should be an active political actor for implementation of the matters they are defending through their research?
I can start, but again, I think the perspectives of the other panelists would be very interesting for this as well. The short answer is yes and no. Yes, to some extent, because I believe that our research and our scientific findings should inform decision-making, political decision-making. Should we be actively involved in politics? I don't believe this is our role. I believe we're here to provide a neutral ground, so we're not taking a stance on one issue, but we're basically, our role is to educate both the society, but also the governmental actors on recent research outcomes that basically have the backing and show that this is, from a scientific perspective, this is the way to go. So yes, in a sense of informed decision-making, we should play an important political role. Beyond that, taking any active political role, I don't believe this should be the role of an academic institution like ours, because I think at our core is still the neutrality as well that makes us very specific, and we should keep this neutrality.
Yeah, I agree with Julia. I think academic institutions should be very neutral, very diverse in everything they do, but they can definitely influence certain decisions with their research. Absolutely.
And my conviction is that in big companies, but probably that's the same for public institutions, we need knowledge, we need scientists, we need guidelines in order to help our choices, our decisions. We're living in a complicated world, in a very complex world, and we don't have much time. 2030, the achievement of SDGs 2030, it's in 9 years now. So we need to be efficient. And for that, we definitely need a scientist background in order to do rational and clever decisions.
Talking about a complex world, Benoit. Question for all of you. What's next for GSIV? What can be expected? And because we have such a beautiful, wide audience, I'm sure some of them are thinking, this is beautiful. This alliance is wonderful. I want to contribute. I want to help. I want to support, whether they're corporates, whether they're investors, whether they're innovation startups. So address our audience that is very diverse, what's next for GSIV, but also how can we get involved? Because yes, complex world, and we have 9 years for 2030 goals to be accomplished. So any order, whoever feels inspired can go first.
Okay, do you want me to go first?
Go for it.
Okay, the very next step, we're going to bring the 12 finalists to Geneva in December during the Building Bridge Week, which is the Swiss Sustainable Finance Week. And they will come and pitch and meet all the different partners, because I'm really insisting on the fact that they will meet investors. But we've seen that scaling up their solution means working with the entire ecosystem, being government, being large corporate, being NGO, the UN, you name it. So they're going to come on December 2nd at the SDG Finance Geneva Summit, which is UNDP Geneva flagship event. This is one of the key milestones this year. But we're also embarking in a new process with EPFL and the other partners, because we're going to localize the methodology of a GSIV in Colombia. And that will be a pipeline builder for another product that UNDP has launched, which is an SDG investment map at the country level. So it's very much a pilot, because we don't know if those companies exist at country level. And it's going to be very exciting to figure out if we can apply that global methodology to the context of a specific developing countries. And then if it works, we hope to scale it up to many more countries. And just to come back to what you said about we want to help, well, we welcome this energy, because we need much more support to scale up the GSIV program. Over.
Excellent. Now, just out of interest of time and not because of your expertise and how much we value you, 30 seconds for each of you, please, as to what are the next steps? What are you most excited for? How can people get involved? Any of those questions you can try to answer in 30 seconds.
I'll have 30 quick seconds. So I guess we're committed collectively to build the business case around how important it is to have startups with sustainable edge, and how it would show the world that how sustainability impact how business operate, compete, and create value.
And on my side, I think we can still improve our. Again, I come back on knowledge and science basis, but I think we can improve our assessment of impact, not only to do the selection, but also in order to be to provide possible advice to the finalists, for example, and to increase impact and business.
And I will end with a very positive note. I'm super excited what's next, because we have seen in the last years that we have a rising number of applications. We have a rising number of quality in the applications. So I'm just very much looking forward for the next set of applications, because I believe we're just at the beginning of a time change. And so I'm just very excited to see all the applications and all the processes that we put in place and that comes next. Thank you so much.
Excellent. To our panelists here, part of the GSIV initiative, thank you so much for taking us through all of this and for exciting us. We'll see you all. Take care. Thanks for being part of Showcase 2030. Okay, so on our end, what we have next is pretty exciting. She's been nominated the Social Entrepreneur Forbes 30 Under 30 Innovation Fellow at Wired UK. One of Europe's most influential women in the startup and venture space. She's been named 29 Powerful Women by Refinery 29. It's amazing what she and her partner have done. I haven't fact-checked the story, but I believe that she had a really nice career in the cosmetic industry, went to a party, met her partner for life, partner also for Seedstars, which they developed together when they started traveling around the world, left that cushy job to set up Seedstars. To talk to us a little bit about that, and to also correct me if that story was not true or not, please welcome co-founder and co-CEO of Seedstars, Alisee de Tonnac.
Hi, thank you for the introduction. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. We can hear you. You're good to go.
Perfect. So let me just go ahead and share my screen. And there we go. Yes. So just to give you a bit of a background of Seedstars, I did indeed leave in 2013 this quite perfect postcard like Switzerland to a much more chaotic reality. We did a world tour where we went to 20 emerging markets and tried to understand what were entrepreneurs in these markets doing and what were their needs. Here's actually a picture of Lagos, the economic capital of Nigeria, which has said 20 million plus people. So out of this total chaos, for us, there was this kind of sheer amount of opportunity, but also, and hence, of course, challenges that we really wanted to be part of. And this is actually where I spent some time in Nigeria to launch our first incubation center. What is Seedstars? Our mission is to have an impact in people's lives in emerging markets through technology and entrepreneurship. We were really arriving 8 years ago in that sweet spot of three major trends. One being that emerging markets were kind of this separation that was made of Rest and West. Well, the Rest was taking over the West, representing over 85% of the population. And even though there's a massive gap in GDP per capita, there's also huge opportunities to reduce that gap. And how could we do that? There was, of course, also this real democratization of technology where talents from anywhere around the world could really launch their own business. And we could finally talk about impact at scale. We have to remember it took us over 100 years to get to 1 billion users for the telephone and less than 10 years to get to 1 billion users for the smartphone. So the adoption rate of new technology is just accelerating. And that really provided the opportunity of talents everywhere to have impact at scale. And finally, a real rise of a generation of entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs, which wasn't a developed country construct. It was really a global movement. And the cool thing is that they really believed that profit and purpose can go hand in hand. So there was really this intention of building businesses with kind of that triple bottom line and a sustainability angle to it. So Seedstars concretely, maybe the best way to live the energy of these communities we represent is to go see our documentary, which showcases the story of Alima, one of our investees, an entrepreneur from Ghana, and kind of the whole concept behind. But in our theory of change, the objective is really to identify key activities that we should be operating to reduce the gaps in these local ecosystems so that we can increase the pipeline of quality and quantity high growth ventures. So those startups with exponential growth. So we provide entrepreneurial education programs. We've really worked on a network and a brand so that we could showcase these stories and provide the right connections of experts, mentors, investors. And finally, we also invest and take equity in these companies. And all this with a consequence over the mid and long term of hopefully creating more jobs directly and indirectly and providing solutions that will elevate the lives of citizens and consumers in these markets. Concretely, that means that we now have supported over 30,000 entrepreneurs. We have actually now a portfolio of 70 companies spread out across 30 countries, from healthcare to education to agriculture, and a network of over 200,000 people. And really spread out across the world. So we're more or less not in Western Europe and the States. But we also have physical spaces, maybe in Myanmar, Tanzania, or Mexico. So maybe just to give you, and I think that you are not the crowd to whom I should convince that emerging markets are really a source of huge talent pool, but also of potential innovations. But just a reminder, it's 85% of the world population. 90% of young people, so less than 30 years old, reside in these markets, and more or less all smartphones are now located in these markets in terms of consumers and citizens that you want to attract. What we've always betted on at Seedstars is we've witnessed again and again the leapfrogging effect of skipping one technology directly to the next. So we've always had this intention of seeing these markets also as innovation nations in themselves, where we could even skip from the second industrial revolution directly to the fourth. I mean, the typical example we give is skipping landline directly to mobile phones, and that has been the case in most markets. So it was always, I mean, back in 2013, it was maybe in the Philippines or Kenya, it was shocking to see how people maybe didn't have there wasn't a strong literacy rate, but their financial literacy was much higher than the typical consumer in Europe. And so if we look just at the fact that now we're looking at a mobile economy, it brings up new services such as financial services, where historically it started in the Roman Empire with checks, then cash, then credit cards. And now we have mobile payment, which has been democratized in Europe. But the reality, it started in 2012 with GCash in the Philippines, where there was this real emergency to transfer money in the 7,000 islands that was the Philippines. And then we have, of course, the example of M-Pesa. And what's so interesting about M-Pesa is that now over 50% of GDP is transferred and processed through one application that is managed by a telco operator, where historically it was dominated by the banking industry in Europe. And on top of that, you build new industries and economies that didn't exist or flourish in these markets. So here, for example, is m-commerce, which has had an exponential growth in emerging markets. I mean, because physical retail didn't really exist or explode. Exist, yes, but it didn't really explode to the proportions that we saw in Europe and the States, whereas through e-commerce and m-commerce, we've seen that now the global pie is taken up by Asia and soon by the other regions around the world. Same on how we had light in Europe versus when I lived in Nigeria, we had these physical powered by fuel generators, which were very painful. And I was the lucky one that could be in a compound with a generator. And now we have these decentralized microgrid solutions that allow to build electricity not only for a house, but again, builds a new economy of these micro entrepreneurs that, for example, in Bangladesh now are buying and selling on different markets. And I think that's what's so fascinating about these markets is we see it as kind of a potential job destruction or like a very heavy weight to take on new technologies, where in these markets is really about building up and providing new jobs that could never be available. And then we have also on the trendier technologies, may it be drones, but we're seeing it more and more in AI and other deep tech, if I may say so, even though we have to be very conscious of the local infrastructure. But here we see President Kagame working with an American company on changing aerial regulations. So we have drones flying over the nation, and this is something now that's spreading out in the region. And it's something where the beauty of these markets that are in many ways starting from scratch, you avoid the heritage of consumer habits, you avoid the heavy lobbying of the industry leaders, and also the kind of difficulty of doing the trade-off, because the infrastructure cost of the previous technologies are so high that to make that change is much more difficult at a private and public level. To give you some examples of startups that we have invested in, and just maybe narrowing down, staying on Africa, even though really we're spread out in all continents, is 3 years ago, our winner from the global competition, AgroCenta, is trying to solve a real pain. This is Mitsaf. So Vivian from Nigeria is solving a real pain, which is that 3 to 4 of medicine in Africa is substandard or fake, which is really, really bad. And it comes from a personal story where she lost a friend which didn't have the right malaria medicine. And so she started off by building a platform that would connect international pharmaceutical companies with the local clinics, hospitals, and pharmacies. And from there, as she scaled up, and this is the case in many businesses we invest in, because the infrastructure is non-existent, they start integrating the value chain. And so now she's becoming kind of a SaaS model where she provides kind of management and inventory tools for the different clinics and pharmacies, but she's also become kind of a B2C model and selling directly the medicine to the end consumer. And this also goes into a market where the difficulty always is in the monetizations, because insurance, medical insurance, the penetration is so low that you start seeing out of the healthcare industry these micro insurance solutions of as small as $1 per month that is starting to bring in the informal economy formally, and also building a real system of democracy that will allow everyone to have the access to the basic needs. And here it comes to AgroCenta, which is from Ghana, where the problem he's trying to solve is that there are over 2 million small farm holders in Ghana only, and they unfortunately cannot work with international buyers that need much larger quantities and quality of produce. So he again started as a marketplace connecting these small farm holders with the international buyers, but quickly realized that he had to integrate the value chain as he was scaling up. And so now he is also the one becoming the buyer, has implemented physical warehouses in Ghana so that he can stock larger quantities of produce and increase the quality through the maintenance of them. And now he's also becoming a bank in many ways by working with one of the bigger banks locally to provide credits directly to the farm holders so that they can increase their production. And again, these are just two examples of how technology can be scalable in these markets, can actually create a completely new industry with the new technologies that we have today in a much linear fashion. But then, if I may say, the downside or what needs to be considered is as these businesses scale up, they really need to start many times integrating part of the value chain, because it's not as easy as launching an e-commerce in Europe, where you have the post office, where you have roads that really help you to bring you from A to B, where you have payment systems that are adopted by the mass and that work really well. And so they really need to figure out the model as they scale.
Alisee, can I ask you a question on that, actually? Yeah. These case studies are amazing because it really brings to life what you're able to do. And of course, Seedstars, you have an incredible infrastructure, I think 90 countries or something of that sort. There's a question that came in here, if you could answer in about 30 seconds. The question is, what is the biggest challenge? I think you kind of mentioned maybe infrastructure is a challenge, so you're able to fund it, but then they can't grow beyond it. But what do you think is the biggest challenge when it comes to working with some of these technologies in emerging markets?
Yeah, I think it's exactly that. The scale-up phase is really painful. I think now everyone can build an MVP, but in scale-up, you have to integrate. So you need deeper pockets. You need to be able to collaborate with government, because there is that tipping point. And finally, human capital. There is a point where you really need your management team. You really start building a much more robust and large organization. And sometimes there are these gaps locally, and it starts becoming expensive to build that team.
Excellent. I really wish we could continue hearing more, but I know that Seedstars has an amazing presence online. And so for everyone who's watching and inspired as I am listening to, and again, massive kudos to you, Alisee, and to your partner for what you've been able to build, because what you have done with Seed Space, your physical space, and your ventures and all your competitions, absolutely phenomenal. I've been loving watching Seedstars from afar, and it's so good to have you here at Showcase 2030. So thank you for being a part of this, and we'll catch you next time. All right, so we're going to swap up the amazing Alisee with an amazing gentleman who has been to a country that I am fascinated with, Burkina Faso. The only reason I'm fascinated with it is because of its capital city, Ouagadougou. I think it's the coolest sounding city. I know it's a silly one, but honestly, he's been working at industrial parks in Ouagadougou. He's been trekking in the Kirghiz mountains. He's been waltz dancing in Viennese balls. I mean, this guy is phenomenal. We're really excited to have him here. He's a PhD in chemistry at EPFL. He works at the Excellence in Africa Center, where he's leading 2 research programs. Hopefully, he'll share a little bit about that. For this lightning talk, we're moving swiftly forward to Frederic. Hope you're here. The screen is yours.
Thank you very much, Dan, and good morning to everyone. Let me share my screen. I have a presentation. Okay, so I'm here to present EXAF. Sorry, that's a good one. Is it working now? Can you see it?
There we go. Yes. Maybe if you can do full screen.
Yes.
There we go. Perfect.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning to everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here today and to have the opportunity to present EXAF and our activities in this quite relatively young center, which has been created in 2019, 2 years ago, and which aims to promoting the excellence in African academic institutions and also to facilitate the digital transformation of Africa. So we are mainly focusing on 2 axes. As I said, one is digital, and typically digital education is very, very important for us. Here we are building on the strong experience of EPFL, which was was quite a leader institution in the production of so-called MOOCs, massive online open courses, and also remote solution to offer digital education for undergraduates, master students, bachelor students, and so on. And you can imagine with the pandemic now how important it is, and especially in Africa. The second axis on the right part of the screen, we have also research projects, and at EXAF we believe in people. So with researchers, with excellent researchers, because there are many, many excellent researchers in Africa, and we are promoting collaborations between these researchers in Africa and EPFL professors, EPFL researchers too. We have also programs for PhDs, for master students. We have a lot of projects. And Dan, I will not also go into all these SDGs, these UN SDGs, but I could say that almost all our projects are somehow linked with SDGs. For instance, on the right part of the screen, you can see 2 projects which are about digital education, creation of platform for digital education, for instance. Of course, the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goal number 4, which is about quality of education, is clearly addressed. But for instance, the first one, African Cities Lab, aims at developing or training urban developers and urban planners, the next generation, incorporating, for instance, digital solution technologies. Of course, here we can say that sustainable cities, which is number 11, if I'm right, if I correctly remember, of course, this SDG is also addressed. On the left part, you see 2 other programs, which is the GFD, Junior Faculty Development Program. Here, it's about collaboration between professors. And we are addressing all topics that you can find at EPFL, for instance, biotechnologies, IT, health, chemistry, and so on and so on. So all these projects can address very, very different SDGs, like, for instance, water sanitation, climate change, of course. We have one project developing biofuels from waste biomass. So it's addressing, of course, climate action and also sustainable energy, and so on and so on. Same with 100 PhDs for Africa program, which has started very recently. We obtained a lot of applications from young researchers, master graduated researchers in Africa. More than 3,000 started to draft an application, which was phenomenal. And many other projects. I don't have time to go into all details, just see the map on the middle. All these red points are projects where we have, our cities, sorry, where we have currently projects being implemented by EXAF. So our partners, quickly, of course, we are partnering with universities and people and researchers, but also international organizations, private sectors, NGOs, and so on, because it's really important to collaborate. What is a very, very good news, and it's really fantastic, we have a lot of requests from diverse organizations to work with us in Africa. So it's really something which is evolving very fast, and it's a very, very good and positive sign for the future. So if I may have a kind of take-home message, at GSIV, we are really believing in people. So we are not only signing a MOU, for instance, with institutions, but we really try to create connections between people, between excellent researchers in Africa and at EPFL or in Europe, in Switzerland. Of course, it's important to focus on what we are doing the best. So we are really focusing on technologies where EPFL is really good, IT, biotechnologies, and so on and so on. And we have, of course, one limitation, which is Africa, because we have our experience and expertise here, and we are working in Africa. So that's all. I hope it was clear enough, and I'm happy to answer to some questions if there are. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for taking us through that presentation. For anyone who's got a question for Frederic, please put it in the Q&A. There's actually a question that came in while you were talking. You must have inspired them to get involved in some capacity because they did a little bit of research and they said, currently it is not possible. Oh, let me look it up here. Currently, it is not possible for Erasmus exchange in Africa at EPFL. Do you know if the university is planning to put in place these exchanges in the future? Do you have any comments on that?
No, because I'm not working at students stage or students department, but in our case, we just launched or recently launched a master project where it was possible to obtain some funding, master kind of contest, master contest projects, where it was possible to obtain fundings to go in Africa, for instance, and to spend 1 month, 2 months to do a research there. The objective or the focus was about, let's say, developing technologies which can be used in African cities. It's really important knowing the very, very fast urbanization of Africa. The time was not the best time because of the pandemic, of course. It was quite difficult to travel, but we are offering such kind of solutions, maybe not Erasmus, but solutions for traveling and visiting these countries and doing research there. Incredible.
Excellent. Frederic, thank you so much for joining us here at Showcase 2030. Thank you for sharing your insights on what you're doing at the Center of Excellence in Africa. And thank you for being a part of this. Take care.
Thank you, Dan.
Excellent. We're going to move into a next section, and we're going to be discussing Tech4Dev. And as part of that, we have two phenomenal ladies who are going to be joining us here on screen. So we're going to do a little technology swap around that you'll see in a moment here, from Frederic, who is obviously talking about what they're doing in Africa, and now to Beatrice and to Nathalie. So there they are. Hello, how are you?
Hi.
So I have a question for both of you. I don't know if you know this about each other, but both of you dove into, well, unique kind of situations. But let me give a quick intro here. So Beatrice has done the second largest cross-country ski marathon in the world. Not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 times, I believe, which is phenomenal. She worked at World Economic Forum, the UN, Red Cross, House of Commons in the UK, and now is head of Tech4Dev. And as far as Nathalie goes, she's been hiking 5,000 meters above sea level in Bolivia. She's worked in integrated natural resource management, private sector dev, focus on financial inclusion. She's a policy advisor for research at SDC. Now, the question is, you both have dove, I think that's the past tense for dive, right? Into rather strange holes. Can you share what that is? Beatrice, what have you, yeah.
It's actually funny because I found out this about Nathalie. I've been working with Nathalie for the past couple of years, and we found it out just before Showcase. So it's funny. So I went diving in a geothermal volcanic cave. It's the only one in Europe, and it's a pretty cool experience because the water temperature is 30 degrees. So it's like being in a very, very warm pool, like underground. So it was pretty cool.
That's incredible. And Nathalie?
Yeah, it was the blue hole in Egypt, and you can imagine it's like a hole. It just goes down like 100 meters, and it's just fantastic because you don't see the ground. It's a wall and then nothing. Fantastic. It's like flying.
I love how you say fantastic. My heart is going like, no. Can't see the floor. That's so scary. And you're like, yes, it's amazing. Can't see the floor. That's phenomenal. Well, we're delighted to have both of you here and delighted that this little bit of trivia is what Showcase could reveal about each other. But Beatrice, let's start with you. Tech4Dev, just give us a broad scope of what it is, what it's doing to change the broader development landscape.
Yes, thank you, Dan, and it's great to be here with all of you today. So Tech4Dev is Tech4Impact's Global South program. The mission of Tech4Dev is steering collaborative innovation and breaking silos. So we do this through our 3-pillar approach. So the first pillar is around research. So we run call for proposals with our EPFL researchers that respond directly to challenges by our NGO council. So we have 24 NGOs that are part of our NGO council that submit challenges in the Global South, from energy to disaster management to healthcare. And we finally select through an independent expert panel 8 collaborative research projects, which are with EPFL researchers and NGOs that develop and scale technologies in the Global South. So we run these call for proposals. We run 1 call per year. And I said we onboard these 8 collaborative projects for a period of 2 years. So you'll have a chance to meet the Tech4Dev grantees later, where you'll see the projects through a series of videos. The second pillar is the entrepreneurship pillar. So since these are research projects, we infuse the business model innovation and entrepreneurship element right from the very beginning. So from the onboarding to when they receive the grant, we conduct dedicated workshops in order for them to discover how the technology can become financially sustainable in the long run. And we do this throughout the 2-year grant period. And the last pillar is through education. So we conduct immersion programs with students. So we held 2 editions of our program in Bangalore, India, in partnership with the Sacco Foundation. So for the previous 2 years, the students were able to go on the field and work on specific problem statements. And we're very excited to be launching our Tech4Impact Summer School in a virtual format next week, actually. So these are the 3 pillars. So it's very much a needs-based approach, because when we look at technologies in the Global South, they need to be responding to specific needs. And it's also a collaborative approach.
Love it. Thank you for taking us through those 3 pillars and what you're doing. So the question, Nathalie, why is the SDC co-financing this innovative, this novel approach to such as Tech4Dev?
Yeah, you know, Dan, that if we want to reach the SDGs, we really need all actors involved. I mean, yes. Governments, obviously, civil society, but also the private sector in all its forms and shapes and sizes. We have heard it from the colleagues. And research, academia. And it's maybe the first time in history that researchers are called upon very explicitly to contribute with their share, with their innovative force and their creativity to find solutions for these urgent and pressing challenges that humanity is facing. And we have seen there's not much time left. And we have big challenges in front of us, so we cannot lose time. We at the SDC, at the Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation, we believe that research has to put itself in the service of society. You know, to be quite frank, we are not very much interested in financing the production of scientific papers. That's not what our mandate is. We have a mandate as the Swiss government to really contribute in reducing poverty in the world, in increasing equality and reducing inequality. That means we really need hands-on results. We need positive change in people's life. That's what we called impact, right? So therefore, scientists are actually called upon to develop hands-on solutions. But, how can we actually do this? It's not as simple as that. So in the past, and sometimes also today, it happens that first research is done, and in a second step, who could actually use it? Policy makers are approached, and sometimes then the timing is not exactly the right one, and a lot of good work is not really directly used. So what we thought it would be maybe better is to really help to develop and finance new initiatives that create true partnerships between practitioners and researchers. You remember SDG 17, right? It's really about partnerships. It's really about collaboration. And Tech4Dev is actually just doing that, with the NGO Council, where practitioners are putting on the table their problems. They say, look, we have these issues. Who can actually help with creating a solution? And then the brave researchers from EPFL, they go and, confront these challenges and say, yeah, okay, guys, we could maybe here make a difference. And that really turns away the focus of research to really the focus of practitioners and put them into the center, because they are also not only in the definition of research questions, but also in the development of the solutions, in the implementation and in the improvements of these solutions, very key.
So we've got a question that's come in, and I know there's a lot of students that are watching, among other parts of the ecosystem as well. But one question that's come in is, how do you get motivated students who are craving to work in such development aid structures as yours to start, and they don't know where to start? So is there a good starting point? Yeah, either one of you can answer that. What's the gateway? What's the door for students who would like to get involved?
I mean, I can start. I think I got involved in the sort of like impact space from very early on. I think at high school even. I was sort of helping to sort of fundraise and organize events for this NGO in Ethiopia called Asset, which I think still exists. And I was participating in sort of Model United Nations or similar type of format. So once I went into university, I decided to maybe take a specific path. So I studied economics, not an engineer by training. But it's really the extracurricular activities, and maybe be closer to student associations or NGOs that you feel you have some sort of connection to their mission or to what they're doing. For example, at EPFL, we have many student associations which are in this space. We have Ingénieurs du Monde, for example, that sort of brings students and gives them the opportunities to do internships in the Global South. We have other student associations which are organizing sort of sustainability led talks. So there's actually, I think, many ways to get involved, but I can latterly sort of speak to sort of more on the perspective of SDC.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I completely agree with you, Beatrice. It's really just to use all the opportunities you have. I mean, I have studied at EPFL, my God, it's already nearly 20 years ago. I'm getting older. And, at that time, I was actually very lucky enough to be able to initiate that student exchange with India, with the IITs. And I hope that it's still there, that's still working. So use these opportunities. Even as students, you can get a lot of insights in these emerging economies, etc. I afterwards have done another master at ETHZ in development and cooperation, and then I was a junior program officer. I mean, it's, just as a junior entered SDC and then got out and got in again. So if you want to work in development, you can do it in so many different organizations, in so many different ways, because actually we really need it from all kind of different sectors, right? Private sector, governments, academia. I mean, just grab whatever opportunity you have and start doing it, and then the rest will follow.
Absolutely. If I can be cheeky and drop my 4 words, start now, start simple. It's what I always say. Often the path to large impact starts with seemingly insignificant steps, whether it's a volunteer opportunity, whether it's a friend asking for a favor, hey, help out with this, speak at this, a volunteer here. And that's what leads the way to much larger impact. And I love that there are students here who are motivated by what you both are sharing. We also have another question from George that says, is there scope for collaborative efforts between Tech4Impact with other labs, or maybe they meant Tech4Dev, with other labs, for example, ETH?
Absolutely, yes. So we're very much in touch with our sort of bigger sister ETH and ETH4D, which is our counterpart. And sort of there are ways that we're sort of bringing together, let's say, EPFL labs and research happening at EPFL with sort of NGOs and the needs that they bring to us on the ground in the Global South. So we wanted to pilot this Global South innovation labs pre-COVID, and there was COVID. So the idea is to sort of create these spaces of exchange between the labs, both from EPFL and potentially also ETH, in order for them to interact with NGOs. So we will concentrate, let's say, a bigger effort in our Tech4Dev scale-up, which maybe we'll speak about later, on this matchmaking effort. So yeah, definitely there is an opportunity, and please get in touch with myself or Nathalie, and we can explore it further.
Excellent. Thanks for answering that question. So, we love this model. It's innovative and it seems to be very impactful. Is there scope to diffuse this, Beatrice? Can we see this replicated, expanded in any way?
Ideally, yes. We've seen that it is a very promising approach. So this combination between sort of the NGO defining the needs and the EPFL researcher providing the expertise is a win-win. And we're still in sort of a year and a half in the program, but we're already thinking about sort of what Tech4Dev version 2.0 looks like. So we're thinking about sort of having thematic call for proposals on specific themes, on specific verticals. We're thinking about sort of having the grants be more flexible and sort of the amounts being tailored to the technology that is tested and developed. And we're also thinking on the back of our minds how we can achieve sort of this systems change that we try and sort of plant the seed with Tech4Dev. So we're working hard on this with SDC, and we hope we can sort of we hope this model can also be adopted also by other tech or engineering university to sort of redefine development cooperation.
And Nathalie, please tell us what is the scope for the future? What can people expect as far as next steps go between SDC, EPFL, Tech4Dev, this wonderful alliance that you have?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Beatrice just mentioned it. It has only been 1.5 years, and we have to see where the journey takes us. On our side, as you know, we are an impact-driven organization, and we want to reach scale. Obviously, we are not interested in just, finding solutions for 100 or some few thousand people. We really want to change lives of millions of people. That's also our mandate. So we have to see how can we, what will Tech4Dev achieve, and what is needed maybe still to go and to scale solutions, to replicate them also in other contexts. We are very much fond of integrating the reflections of a sound business model right from the beginning, even when research is still taking place. We think that this has not to happen afterwards. It really has to happen right at the beginning. And that's why we also think the solutions and the innovations that Tech4Dev is fostering, they have the best potential to reach scale. But, we have to see what is needed. It's not something that you can plan beforehand. We have to be flexible. We have to be also reactive to the needs then afterwards. But we will be certainly there and still be a partner in the future.
Amazing. Beatrice, anything to add there as to next steps and who can get involved and maybe some of our audience and how they can participate?
Absolutely, yes. So definitely reach out to us. We have sort of on the Tech for Impact website, you have sort of the Tech4Dev session. We will be sort of we will restart the Global South lunches that we started hosting as well. So there's many opportunities to get involved. We have our Tech for Impact Summer School, which is kicking off. So very excited to see that and looking forward to seeing where this journey takes us. It's been sort of a big sort of pilot project from the very beginning, but we have plenty of lessons learned. So please be in touch if you want to know more.
I'm looking in the comment section, and actually I see that there's been a lot of these links and resources shared. So if anyone who's listening to Beatrice and Nathalie and are just curious about how they can get involved, you please look in the Q&A section. I think Julia and a couple others have shared those links for how you can get involved. We also have Hilda saying, bravo, Tech4Dev. So people are enjoying this. I love that these are early days, but there's already success stories. In fact, I think we have 4 videos of grantees of the Tech4Dev program that we're going to roll out over the next couple of hours. So we have one lined up now that we're going to show. But before we do that, again, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sharing about what SDC, Tech4Dev, and the larger ecosystem are doing and accomplishing. And like you're hearing, it's early days, but let's get involved. Let's make a difference together. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dan. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Dan.
Excellent. So here we go. Lots of new projects, lots of legacy projects, some that have been going on for a long time, some that have been going on for a short time. But what's important is for all of you that are watching right now, get involved. We would love to see this as interactive as possible, as involved as possible. We do have a video to play of one of the grantee winners. We have 4 in total, but let's do the first one right now, if we can.
The main challenge that we are facing in this setting is the very high mortality or deaths among newborns that are born a bit too early and of low birth weight. The innovation that we are trying to come up with is to develop a way to keep these babies warm using modern and high quality yet affordable technology.
So most of the medical devices are not adapted to the context. For instance, we see many incubators that are offered to hospitals, but the problem is that as soon as they face a power cut, then the children are not warm enough.
Some studies have shown that in rural Kenya, it was done on 11 sites, that there was some power outage. It was up to 7 power outages on average per week. And these power cuts lasted from 2 to 60 minutes and even 150 hours. Big consequence on these incubators because they are not able to provide the heat necessary to keep these newborns hot, warm enough to sustain their life. So the idea is to have a device which stores heat directly into the incubator. And we don't want to use batteries because it's too technological and too expensive. The idea is to use a simple phase change material, typically paraffin.
About the design approach, we start by considering the hospital use for the incubator, but quite quickly we had to consider the whole life cycle of the product. So the next step is to test it on site in Kenya with medical staff and to have some feedback from them about the ergonomic considerations, how to manipulate the device, and about also the interface that is language independent based on pictogram.
Yeah, and we need to collaborate to integrate also the electronics, the battery, because there will be all the sensors for the monitoring of the newborn, and also the electronics, the battery.
Of course, we've also had initial conversations with the stakeholders and provided feedback on the technology itself. At the moment, we are working with one of our partners to do a market study on the feasibility of doing local manufacturing.
I think it's super important to check the ergonomic consideration, how to manipulate the product, and from these feedbacks to improve the design and some details. Each detail is super important, and you cannot fail with one because you can make the project not viable. Yeah.
We still have a long way to go, but we are positive, and we really want to find a way to help children fight hypothermia.
All right, so that was one of 4 grantee winners that we wanted to show you. I hope you can still hear me, even though you may not be able to see me. But what I want to introduce in a moment is our next speaker for our lightning talks. So I just want to make sure that we have the right things, just in case you, the audience, are watching right now and able to hear. Again, remember, the Q&A section is important. Get involved over there. Please put it in the comment section because we are very fortunate to have our next speaker here. I am not entirely sure if you're able to see me right now on the screen, but I think you can see our next speaker over here. So hopefully she can hear me as I'm about to announce who it is. We have got an amazing woman who is a director at SDG Lab for UN Geneva. She started a career with Médecins Sans Frontières, Swiss Red Cross, Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation, Swiss Ministry of Foreign Affairs. She served as a Swiss diplomat for 10 years. She served as a deputy head of development affairs of the permanent mission of Switzerland to the UN in New York. Incredibly accomplished and the right person to take us through this conversation about how everybody has to get involved. The cooperation is essential. So here to join us at Showcase 2030, Director at SDG Labs, UN Geneva, Nadia, over to you.
Thank you very much, Anram, for this very kind introduction. And good morning to colleagues. Some of you I know, some of you I'm getting to know through this fantastic initiative of the EPFL, and some of you I look very much forward to meeting in the near future. So my brief talk today is indeed about the power of partnerships and collaborations. And this is nothing new, right? I think everything we've been talking about today boils down to how we can actually find opportunities to work together to really accelerate results on the SDGs. But I guess what I'd like to talk about today is why partnerships and collaborations, first of all, are really inherent to the DNA of the Sustainable Development Goals, but also why partnerships don't just happen out of the blue. What strikes me very often is that we tend to think that partnerships and collaboration are like a magic wand that you just kind of pull out of a suitcase and ta-da, suddenly a successful partnership just emerges. And not only does it emerge, but then it actually makes it through the test of time up to outcomes. Now, as we know, it's not as easy as that, and I'll be giving you a few examples in this very short talk. I won't be presenting slides. I'll keep slides and presentation for the interactive workshop we'll be hosting at 11 o'clock a little bit later with my colleagues. But why is collaboration and partnerships inherent to the Sustainable Development Goals? I mean, the first point is that, as we all know, the SDGs are not a UN agenda adopted by the UN, right? And although we still tend to hear this over and over again, it is not a UN agenda. It's a global, universal agenda that was actually adopted in the premise of the UN, but that was very much crafted, designed, and adopted by a whole spectrum of different actors and partners that are actively involved in implementing these goals. Although the governments inherently, the 193 members of the UN, were the ones who adopted it formally per se, there was a lot of work prior to define what those goals would be. Today we have these 17 goals, and it seems as though they too just came out of a magic hat, but there was a lot of work that was done prior to that in each and one of those countries to get civil society, academics, UN organizations, governments, the private sector together to actually define what were the universal goals we all wanted to work together. So inherently there already, there's a diversity of actors involved that have ownership in shaping this agenda, but that also have a co-responsibility to implement the Agenda 2030, as we call it. The second point that really demonstrates that collaboration and partnerships are in the DNA of Agenda 2030 is that it is a universal agenda. And there again, 6 years after the adoption, it sounds almost obvious to reiterate and remind ourselves that it is a universal agenda. But this actually at the time and today too is very critical from a political point of view, because it really means that it's an agenda that every single country in the world has engaged to, has committed to actually implement, and feels has a co-responsibility to do. So it's not like in the MDG era when we had this tendency of having a sort of very, it was an agenda that was often perceived as being the responsibility of developing countries, with a very kind of skewed political dynamic. Today, with this universality being really at the core of the DNA of the agenda, the notion of collaboration is there too. It's the notion of saying that global challenges today can't be solved only in one country or in one region, because the challenges of the SDGs have repercussions within regions, within countries, but among different regions and among the different countries of the world. So this interconnection between states, seeing really the world and its global challenges as being such, as being global, is inherent to the agenda, and thus really is already a premise that nudges us into thinking not only inwardly towards national objectives, but how can the national objectives and goal then actually feed into the global goals. And then the third aspect, which is very much linked to partnerships in the DNA of the agenda, is that it's an integrated agenda. And there again, today, 6 years down the road of the adoption of this agenda, we talk about integration or a systemic approach, as I heard other speakers before, as if it's just, of course, a given that all those goals are actually intertwined. Although in theory, we all know that, to actually implement that in practice is complicated. Because inherently it means collaboration. It means collaborating among different sectors. Take the example of collaborating between the health sector and the environmental sector, collaborating between tech labs and policymakers, academics, etc. So the mere fact that there's really this recognition that we can't make progress in one sector in isolation of other sectors because of the correlation between all of them. Just take now, for example, COVID. It's the most striking illustration of the correlation between health, the environment, and the economy of a given country and of the world. So inherently, having this DNA really forces us all to think, act, and invest in a very integrated and partner-driven, collaboration-driven way. But having said that, although the agenda has really this very strong nature to it that nudges us into collaborating, these collaborations don't just happen, right? I mean, the first challenge is, how do we actually identify those opportunities to collaborate. And that is very much at the core of what we do at the SDG Lab, is that we use the neutrality of the UN to try and take a bird's eye view to really identify strategic opportunities where we know that a certain group of actors are working in a given field and could really benefit from building a bridge with another set of actors to accelerate each other's mandates, based on the premise that no institution, no government, no partner, no actor, no stakeholder has got all the answers, or all the expertise, or all the know-how to be able to deliver on these goals. So the importance of really identifying those opportunities also doesn't just happen out of the blue. It means one needs to really map who are the stakeholders out there, even in a small ecosystem, but very powerful one like the Geneva one, which we actually work with a lot at the SDG Lab. It takes a lot of time and dedication to be actually able to identify who is actually active on the SDGs in this ecosystem. And today, the SDG Lab is actually managing a platform called the Geneva 2030 Ecosystem, where we have more than 450 partners collaborating. And we actually nourish and feed and curate this group. And our role is to try and identify those opportunities based on what we're hearing that drives, that motivates, that incentivizes the different actors in their individual mandates, and to really build bridges with other partners so that very, very unexpected collaborations can happen. So this notion of the identification of a potential partnership doesn't just happen. Someone's got to do that, an institution's got to do that. I think that's my first point. The second one is that to really be able to create a meaningful partnership, there needs to be space and time, in our experience, dedicated to really understanding what drives the other partner or the other partners to join forces. And that, we like to say at the lab, is really that's the foundation of a hopefully potential future partnership, is really understanding oftentimes partners that come from totally different spheres of expertise, understanding why on earth will you go through the pain of joining forces with my organization? What is it that is of interest to you? And how can my mandate and my expertise of my given institution be helpful to yours? And to actually create that conversation, which in our view is really one of the core building blocks of a successful partnership, you need that space. It doesn't just happen through a phone call or a good recommendation. It happens through building a space for people, for human beings to actually meet, interact, speak informally, ask all the questions that they wouldn't dare to ask on a Zoom meeting when you have 400 people listening, and really having this sort of trust-building conversation of why on earth is it that we're joining forces, and why should we go through the pain of investing time and money in doing so. And then last but not least, in our experience in partnerships and collaborations, not only the importance of identifying the potential, creating the space for that trust, but it's also what does it take for a successful partnership to make it through the test of time. There again, it's not just a given that because a partnership is starting on a good note, it's pretty much like in life, I guess, that it will last forever, right? You oftentimes need people that are almost the curators or the responsible for the long-term success of that partnership, making sure that partners regularly check in, and is it still working for them? The way the partnership is developing, the initiative, the projects and collaboration, does it still work for my organization? Has the global context, the national context, the company context, the academic context had an influence on what's driving me today in this partnership? Are there things that we need to alter to make sure that we're all happy and continuing to move forward? I think my 10 minutes are up now. In the session we'll be leading at 11 o'clock. We look forward to giving you a very concrete example of a phenomenal partnership in this case between the development community and the finance community, called Building Bridges. And we'll be really breaking down all the ingredients of a successful partnership in that workshop later. Over to you, Darren.
Nadia, I loved everything you took us through there, and especially when you talked about the importance of creating space and the fact that this is multi-stakeholder, but blatantly obvious, it's multicultural, it's multi-perspective, it's multi-backgrounds. I mean, there's so much here when it comes to collaboration. That's really what you guys are doing at the SDG Labs, of course, is bringing all these different parties together. There's a question that's come in. What do you find is the main challenge when you're dealing with these collaborations? What's the hardest part of this?
I think the hardest part is convincing everyone that this is hard work and not to give up too early. I think in this very fast-paced world we're living in, where we're used to having quick information, quick results, it's very hard to devote time and space to build a strong partnerships. Also because very often we have shareholders, donors, and other constituencies that are depending on our results that may be less patient than we are, who have their own pressures to show results very quickly and may want to leapfrog certain I'd say, building blocks of a successful partnership, think that we can actually leapfrog the part of building that trust and that real understanding of why on earth it is that we're joining forces. So I guess patience is the big challenge. Giving the space and the time for building a successful partnership is today, I think, a big challenge in this fast-paced world we're in.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that insight, because I guess when you're dealing with so many different stakeholders from so many different countries, and they all have a different sense of ownership and prioritization around each of the goals as well, I can't imagine, but your work must involve instilling hope and convincing everyone we can and we have to. I don't even think it's the choice of, all right, let's skip a step, or let's delegate this to someone else, or it's the developed world's problem or the developing world's problem, or it's this country is not playing, but somehow getting everyone onto the same vision, the same platform. I cannot imagine the monumental task that is involved in doing that. So massive kudos to you. Is there anything here at Showcase 2030 that you would like to direct people to? Any reports, any analysis, any resources that people can get involved in, can interact with?
Yes, I mean, there are a zillion resources, and always kind of difficult to pin them down to one or two or three. And of course, the SDG Lab has a modest contribution in this huge endeavor that you just mentioned, Darren, right? I mean, I think we're all engaging in this challenge of successful collaborations and partnerships, and so we're all kind of adding our ingredients and expertise to this equation. From the SDG Lab perspective, we've developed a tool called the Toolkit on how to actually build a multi-stakeholder lab, and we did that because a lot of our partners and outside stakeholders have asked us also, so what are your main lessons learned in your 4-year-long journey of building such a space and a collaborative space? So this is one tool that you can find on our website. It is actually being drastically updated at the moment to have, it's almost the word is not right because it's very kind of top down to say that it's not a training, right? But it's a sharing of experiences. And this massively updated version will be ready in September and on our website, and it's a global good for whoever wants it. We're also looking at developing this tool to be a growing global good, so to speak, that we would give our 2 cents on our experience at the lab, but it would then be complemented by all the experience of other partners across the world when it comes to what they feel have been their major lessons learned, achievements, and also maybe traps not to fall in, and to allow others also not to waste time on things that don't work. As a laboratory, a lot of we do a lot of that. We do a lot of testing, and a lot has worked. Some things haven't worked as well as we would have thought of. But out of that, we've drawn a lot of lessons.
Nadia, thank you so much for being
you.
a part of Showcase 2030. Thank you so much for sharing all your insights. It's been wonderful having you. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you for your trust. Have a great day.
All right. And with that, we've got another video to play for you. Grantee number 2 from Tech4Dev, the program we were talking about earlier. So let's roll the tape and give you a little insight on what they've been working on.
I'm Silvia Hostettler, I'm professor here at EPFL, and I'm leading a laboratory of renewable energy science and engineering. And for the solar hydrogen cooking project from Tech4Dev, we're responsible for the system design and the design of the devices.
Hi, I'm Frederic. I am the founder of Soft Power, the Global South partner of the project, and we are leading the engineering and local implementation of the system in Cameroon. Today, more than 3 billion people rely on polluting fuels for cooking, and most of them are located in Global South. The resulting indoor air pollution is responsible for more or less 4 million deaths annually, and most of them are children below 5 years old. In this project, we propose to use solar irradiation as the input energy and water as the feedstock in order to produce the freedom fuel, which is hydrogen, for clean cooking.
So the system is composed of individual components. First, we use solar energy to produce electricity, and then this electricity is used in a device like the one you see here, where we use water as an input, electricity made by solar energy, and then we produce hydrogen and oxygen. Hydrogen is a fuel, and this fuel is then provided to a variety of families for clean cooking. So that is the second technology, the stove, which is burning hydrogen in the houses of the families. And this stove is designed that indoor air pollution is not a problem anymore, and it is a source of renewable cooking.
Here we have a global overview of the system that we are implementing in Cameroon, but at a larger scale. With this project, we are developing a green and circular economy that could be easily upscaled in the next years.
So concretely, the impact should be that we will have a clean cooking solution, reduced indoor air pollution, that we have side products in the system which can be very important. For example, we saw before that we're producing hydrogen and oxygen is extremely important right now, even more so in the medical context. So this is one part where we will have impact. And finally, the combustion product of hydrogen is water.
All right, everybody. So here we are at the final part of our first half. I hope you can see me again. We might be having some issues, maybe on my end, maybe on your end. We never know with the world of virtual. But if you can still hear me, that's wonderful. What we're about to do is take a little bit of a break. This is a learning break, of course, because it's virtual. You can grab your food, your drink, and you can enjoy while learning. We've got master classes to show you, lots and lots of fantastic master classes and workshops. So I think we've got a slide about that, but it says we've got everything you always want to know about humanitarian action and innovation. We've got another one on peace tech, world technology, and wars. We've got another one on enhancing the environmental sustainability of emerging technology, co-creating sustainable finance solutions, perfect pitch, and so much more. So if you want to know how to dominate a stage or a screen and give that perfect pitch, if you are an entrepreneur that's watching, that is also available. So lots of great master classes. I think we can stop the screen share here and maybe come back to me in the studio as we bring people in. Okay, so what we're going to do is before we go into those master classes, because we've got about 5 minutes, why not everyone do a quick stretch break? Take your laptop off your lap, put it down, and make sure you stretch. Make sure you talk to whoever you're sharing your house with. Tell them you still care about them and that you love them, even though you're absolutely ignoring them, because Showcase 2030 is where the action is at. Make sure that you go on social media and use hashtag Showcase 2030 to ensure that you're sharing all your knowledge and you're documenting it. You never know when you'll come back to what you are learning over here. We also have networking opportunities. Please make sure you go check that out. Also, we've got virtual booths with all the startups. And we'll be back here on the main stage at 1 p.m. So a lot to do in the next little while. The master classes, the networking, the virtual booths, your stretch break, maybe go get something to eat or drink, refresh, hydrate, all that good stuff. The second half, we've got more innovation to share with you, got more exciting new initiatives to share with you. We would love to have you at 1 p.m., not 1:01, at 1 p.m. We're going to go live, Swiss time only. So from my end, thank you so much for being a part of this first half. I hope you enjoyed it. Enjoy your master classes, workshops, networking, and everything else. And we'll see you very soon. Bye-bye.